South China Sea is once again on the brink of confrontation. In one of the most dramatic incidents of 2025, U.S. Navy warships intercepted Chinese vessels as the Philippines delivered supplies and personnel to disputed outposts. This high-stakes maritime standoff near the Second Thomas Shoal has not only tested the resolve of Manila, but also reaffirmed Washington's commitment to defending its allies under the U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty. The South China Sea dispute has entered a dangerous new phase. At the center of this confrontation is the Second Thomas Shoal, a contested reef in the Spratly Islands where the Philippines maintains its fragile outpost aboard the grounded BRP Sierra Madre. For years, the Philippine Navy and Coast Guard have carried out risky missions to deliver supplies, food, fuel, and fresh troops to the small detachment of Marines stationed there. But each resupply mission has been challenged by Chinese Coast Guard ships and maritime militia vessels determined to block Manila's access and assert Beijing's sweeping territorial claims. Filipino forces transported food, fuel, and new personnel to a Philippine territorial outpost in a fiercely disputed shoal in the South China Sea, two Philippine officials said. Friday's delivery was carried out despite tensions that flared recently at the atoll after China staged water cannon drills and deployed additional Coast Guard and suspected militia vessels nearby. Two Philippine security officials told the Associated Press that a new armed forces of the Philippines delivery of supplies and Navy and Marine personnel to the Second Thomas Shoal was successfully completed without any untoward incident Friday. The officials did not elaborate and spoke on condition of anonymity because of the issue's sensitivity. One of the officials said the delivery to the strategically significant submerged reef was postponed for a few weeks to ensure its security and success. Two U.S. Navy destroyers were on routine patrol Friday in the South China Sea during the Philippine military delivery to the Second Thomas Shoal, the two officials said. They did not say if the separate military operations of the longtime treaty allies in the same region of the disputed waters were related or happened coincidentally. Chinese officials did not immediately issue a statement. They have previously claimed the fishing atoll and virtually the entire South China Sea in the past and have repeatedly demanded the Philippines pull a grounded warship, the BRP Sierra Madre, from the Second Thomas Shoal. The Philippine military has carried out at least 9 such deliveries of supplies and new batches of Navy and Marine personnel without incident to the long-grounded BRP Sierra Madre since last year. Confrontations were averted after Beijing and Manila signed a temporary non-aggression deal in July 2024 to prevent new confrontations at the fishing atoll. Last month, however, China deployed several more Coast Guard and suspected militia ships to the closely guarded shoal, including some with more powerful machine guns, backed by a helicopter and an unmanned surveillance drone. A Chinese Coast Guard ship was spotted firing its powerful water cannon in an apparent drill or intimidating gesture, and a Chinese boat came as close as 50 meters, 164 feet, to the Sierra Madre. The Chinese vessel was blocked by 2 boatloads of Filipino forces from coming closer to the ship outpost, the Philippine military said. Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro condemned the Chinese forces' actions at Second Thomas Shoal, which lies within Manila's exclusive economic zone, and said the Philippines would stand up against such gross violations of international law. There have been concerns a new attempt by the Philippine military to deliver fresh supplies to the Sierra Madre may be blocked by the beefed-up Chinese forces. The Philippines deliberately beached the Sierra Madre in the shallows of the Second Thomas Shoal in 1999 to serve as a territorial outpost. China, which also claims the shoal, later surrounded the atoll with its ships. The long unresolved territorial standoff has caused frequent face-offs between Philippine military supply boats and Chinese forces, until diplomats forged the non-aggression arrangement last year covering the shoal, a landmark deal between two claimant states. Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan also have overlapping territorial claims in the Strategic Sea Passage, a key global trade route. The U.S. lays no claims to the waters, but has repeatedly warned it is obligated to comply with a 1951 mutual defense treaty covering Filipino forces in the South China Sea. On this latest mission, the Philippines pushed forward once again. But this time, U.S. Navy destroyers were nearby, shadowing the operation and monitoring Chinese activity. The moment Chinese ships began moving aggressively to intercept, American warships maneuvered into position, directly countering Beijing's blockade attempt. Radio warnings echoed across the sea. Chinese commanders declared the Philippines had illegally intruded into Chinese sovereign waters. Philippine vessels fired back over the comms. "We are operating lawfully within our exclusive economic zone." Then came the clearest signal yet. A U.S. Navy officer transmitted a stern warning to Chinese ships, reminding them of international law and freedom of navigation rights. The standoff was tense. Chinese vessels attempted dangerous blocking maneuvers. Philippine supply ships pressed on, relying on American escorts. U.S. warships adjusted course, effectively intercepting Chinese vessels and preventing them from cutting off Manila's convoy. For hours, the two sides engaged in a dangerous game of cat and mouse, with potential military escalation hanging in the balance. International analysts have called this incident one of the most serious South China Sea confrontations in recent years, raising fears that a direct clash between the United States and China could be triggered by a single miscalculation.